How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in plates? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Guys, welcome to another episode of the Tactical Empire. Today, I am very excited to have our guest, Corey Berrier, on the line to teach you about sales. Corey owns and operates the Sales CEO, and he is a sales master. He and I have known each other for a while, communicated online, got hooked up that way, and then met in person through a few different mastermind groups that we belong to. And so I'm excited to talk today, Corey, and we're going to hear about your story and how you got into sales and everything else. And then what I want you to do is bring us some tools and tips so we can make more money next year.
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Welcome, my man. Hey, would you first tell us a little bit about kind of your background and give us some exposure to the ins and outs of you, my man?
Sure. So, first off, thanks for having me on, Jeff. I appreciate it. Been looking forward to this. So my background is interesting because I've had a lot of stuff in, I guess the best place for me to start was, I've been in sales for 25 years. And in 2005, I got caught with 4 ounces of cocaine and almost went to prison. And I tell you that because that was quite a turning point in my life, because I was I was selling dope. So obviously not a great career path. And I got caught and it really changed a lot for me. And so naturally I didn't continue selling dope, but I also didn't really straighten up either. I kept drinking, and I had already had 3 DUIs at the time. And 2009, I decided to stop drinking. And that's when things really turned around. And before that, even during my drug days, believe it or not, I actually had a candle company. And look, I'm going to be honest with you. I had the candle company because it was a nice cover up, but it was a legitimate candle company. So, that brings me kind of to 2017. I sold my personal training business that I had for 5 years at the time. I was a master personal trainer. I did that for about a decade. And I opened up a TRT clinic, a med spa. And that's kind of when things went sideways a little bit. No, not a little bit, but completely sideways. In 2018, I parted with my business partner. It was not a good partnership, and I'll just leave it at that. But ultimately, I had to walk away with nothing, and I had to start over. And so it was a really tough time in my life. And so that brings me kind of till today. And I consult with different industries, different companies with their sales teams, with their company culture. There's a lot of things that I help companies with, but ultimately, I help them save money and grow their revenue, essentially, and save time. Actually, not save money, save time is what I was trying to say.
Right. And you actually train sales teams on tactics and approach, and okay, awesome.
Yeah. Because here's the thing: there's a lot that goes into a sales process, and the likeliness of somebody that doesn't really focus on that specifically. You're probably going to be missing some of that, right? It's, people miss follow-up all the time. And that's one of the things that I'm an absolute master at. And because I know how to hit you from a million different ways, right? And I know how to do it in a way that you don't feel bombarded. And so it's bizarre how many companies don't have a follow-up process. It's absolutely bizarre. So, sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
No. What's the simplest follow-up process that a small business could implement?
Well, the simplest thing is guess what? If you don't close the sale, you got to call the person back and ask them for the sale, right? Find out what happened. Find out, even if they don't go with you, find out why they didn't go with you, and then ask them if they know somebody that would go with you. That is a simple process, right? But here's what happens. We get told no, and we're like, we don't even think about asking them for a referral because they said no. You don't have to be a paying client to give me a referral, right? You just don't.
Yeah.
But guess
Do you know
what?
anybody? Yeah.
You're going to miss that referral every single time you don't ask.
Yep. Yeah. I think the most difficult thing that I have teaching my clients and my staff is that like, it's really, they're doing a disservice to their clients by not asking for that sale, because like they are good at what they do. They're professionals in what they do. And to let someone walk out of the building or off the phone call without providing them the product or service that they need to make a change in their life positively, they're letting that person down. So it's not spammy or like pushy to tell the person exactly what you have for them that can benefit them. It's your obligation to serve them.
That's true. But if you provide enough value to that customer, then guess what? They'll make their own decision. They'll decide to buy. Believe it or not, they will actually make the decision on their own. And you don't have to ask, right? If you provide enough value. If you don't provide enough value, that's when you got to ask yourself, why didn't they buy? What did I do wrong in this sales process that made them not trust me? Because ultimately, that's what they're saying. I don't trust you enough to buy, right? So you got to earn that trust.
So when you go through your sales process and you're training a staff, are you big on like building the problem, then providing the solution and making that prescription? Or what would you say if you came in to teach my staff, like what would be the steps that they would follow to a sale?
So the first thing that, and I'm so glad that you just asked me that, because like, it's so funny that you asked me that, because I actually wrote a whole book on this exact thing for personal trainers, and I never published it. Anyway, I'm thinking about moving forward with that. So this is exactly what I would do. I'll tell you exactly. Well, actually, I'll just tell you exactly what I did. If you called the gym, or you came into the gym and somehow you either asked for me or I was assigned, you were assigned to me, whatever that looks like, I would find out where you live. I would look up your house. I would watch what you drove in the car, in the gym parking lot. I would pay attention to your clothes. I would pay attention to how you walked in the gym, and I would read all of those things. And that would set me up pretty well to know what exactly you were in the market for. And by asking really targeted questions that are going to make you not make you feel bad about yourself, but to make you realize that if you don't make this decision, nothing's going to change. And I believe that. I believe if you don't train with me, your life's not going to change. And it's damn sure not going to get better than it would be if you did work with me. So that's how I see it, right? That's exactly what I would do. That's exactly what I used to do. People, you got to be careful in the gym setting, though, because people are nervous, and you got to be aware of that also. Again, remember, I said you got to pay attention to how people move, how they act. If people are acting timid, you have to back off, right? But it's knowing those cues and knowing when to act and when not to act.
Right. I love it. I love it. That's fantastic information. So let's pivot away from sales. We'll get back to it in a minute, but tell me about, like, you have a pretty lengthy history in business, obviously, from the candle shop to today doing the consulting. What do you enjoy outside of business?
Well, that's really challenging. We travel a lot. So I love traveling. I love traveling with my wife. Her and I, most of the time, travel alone, because either we're going to somewhere where she's got to shoot a wedding and we just make a 4-day weekend out of it, which we do often, honestly. And really, I work pretty damn hard. So when I do that, that's kind of my time. I don't, I don't have much of a balance. It's either, I get up at 4:14 every morning and I go till 9, sometimes 10 o'clock all day long. And am I working the entire day, every second of the day? No, but I'm engaged with what I'm supposed to be doing that entire time. I'm thinking about, what do I need to do next? Or what have I not done? Or what do I need to do better? Whatever that looks like. And when you run a solo practice like I do, you kind of have to do everything. Now, I do, I had a VA. It didn't really work out. So I'm getting ready to bring on another one, I think.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can relate to the solo practitioner side of things for sure, because I run a couple different masterminds. One I have support in, and the other one that I run myself. I'm the sole owner operator of that particular mastermind. And so I totally understand what that looks like with the nuances of handling a business from the communication side to the fulfillment side to the sales side of it, all as a one-man show. So
but it's important, but it's really important to recognize the things that, and this is, look, if I could probably make any point on this podcast today, would be this. Dude, hire people. Look, I do have outsource. Lord have mercy. I do have things outsourced. I have people very close to me that I can call if I need them for whatever it is I'm not very good at. And so what I've realized, Jeff, is there's some things I just really don't want to do. There's some things I really fucking hate doing. And ultimately, I have to hire that stuff out, because guess what I'm going to do? If you leave it up to me to do the thing I hate to do, it ain't going to get done. Right? Because I hate doing it. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I'm completely obstinate, but there are certain things that, man, I just rather get my ass kicked to do it. But I outsource that stuff, like my podcast show notes, for example. I would rather have my ass kicked than have to do that. That's just me.
I'm the same way. If I had to produce my own podcast, I wouldn't do it. Like I get to show up and do just this and then shut the thing off. The extent of what I have to do is show up on time, talk, and press record, and then shut the thing off. And that's it. If it was anything different, that's what took me 2 years to start the podcast, was because I thought the process was going to be too difficult, and I didn't want to do it by myself, because I know that's not in my wheelhouse for strengths, just because I kind of stick to what I'm great at, and that's how I spend my time.
Yeah.
And so,
fortunately, I know, I obviously know that I assume you go through Zach to do that. And Zach, early on, I'll tell you, when I first started my show, I'm going to be honest with you, I actually didn't have a show. I had my show slug, which, maybe you could say that was a show, but not really. Like, I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest with you. And I asked, and Ryan Williams, I know you do.
Yep.
I asked Ryan Williams to be on my show, and he said yes. And I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do now? Because, I don't know what I'm doing. I hadn't even opened my mic yet.
Yeah.
And so I came home and just powered through it and drove myself into the ground figuring this out. I am not a technically savvy person at all. But fortunately, Zach did help me out a little. He did help me out some. So, and I'm really grateful for that, because if he hadn't, I probably wouldn't be sitting here.
That's a solid interview, though. Ryan's a stud. He's a great businessman.
He really is. And he's such a good guy. He's just such a good dude, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you have planned for 2022 with your business?
So I launched my group a little bit less than 90 days ago. And it's a 90-day. Yep. My Sales CEO Syndicate. And so that's wrapping up. We're going to kick that off again mid-January. So we've got that going on. I have a specific, I guess you could say, marketing plan that I'm working on that I can't really talk about, but I've just, it's going to work, and it's going to be fucking impact. It's going to be so powerful. It's not even funny. And so I'm testing it now, and so far it's been good so far. So I can't really go into it, but expect to see me on some stages this year. That's for sure.
I love it. I love it, man. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that is awesome. As far as sales in the moving marketplace, as far as what we're dealing with right now, because they're announcing new lockdowns and all this other shit, right? So do you think that moving into this new climate of business impacts sales? And if so, obviously it does, but what are some tips to stay ahead of the game when it comes to continuing to close the leads that you have access to? So let's not get into lead gen. Let's talk about like, I get a steady flow of whatever, X a month, because ultimately I think people get too hung up on the sexiness of marketing, and they're always like trying to get the next plug to like, if I only had 10X the leads, and I'm like, no, motherfucker, if you only closed 50% more based on what you've got, like if you just look at the pool of leads that you get, it's usually plenty if you closed them and got money from 80% of them.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, dude. It's a great question, because if people are not prepared to sell post-COVID, and I assume we're post-COVID, but who the fuck really knows? I didn't know there were lockdowns. I didn't know there was lockdowns either. But you know, if you're not changing the way that you sell post-COVID, then that, I mean, I don't know. I would be shocked if people haven't changed their mindset on how people sell. Right? People need to get better on video. There's zero question, should be zero question in anybody's mind. If you're not doing video right now, you're behind. Right? You've got to get on video, because right now it's important. It's so important because look, you can't. Well, I don't know for a lot. Are you saying that you're hearing lockdowns here in the States?
Yeah, no. I mean, they're requiring vax mandates in Chicago January 3rd. You can't go in any gyms. You can't go in any restaurants. You can't go in anything without your passports. Just like New York and San Francisco. But we've got Canadian clients in my other mastermind too, and the Canadian clients are having different lockdowns. They're shutting down gyms yesterday, actually, until January 18th. They got 12 hours notice that their business was being shut down for a month.
Dude, like this is just like it. Well, just take that as an example. A 12-hour notice to have your business shut down for a month. If you didn't prepare for something crazy like that, mm-hmm. At this stage, then you've lost your mind. You have to be prepared for what's coming. And we don't know what's coming. I don't think anybody can predict what's coming, what's not coming, who's got, I don't know if anybody really has any answers at this point. I know I don't. I don't have any answers about anything that's going on, other than if you're selling the way you did before COVID, you're going to have a really hard time after.
Well, I think you bring up a good point. One of the biggest things that I feel like I've lost since over the last 2 years is like, I'm a big people person as far as in-person relationships. Like I have made my life on in-person relationships and my ability to network when I get face-to-face with you. And one of the things I saw early on was that I had to become great at sales over the phone. And I think that if you are not fantastic at selling people over the phone yet, to your point, you said video. I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another, because you could be on fucking video on your phone anytime now. So like, I just had a person call me for a consultation the other day and they insisted on FaceTiming me, and I don't fucking FaceTime with anyone. So like, that was weird as hell to me. Like my mom FaceTimes my kids and I don't even like participate on that shit. So like, it was a weird deal, but it just drove home that point. Like I better be able to sell on FaceTime, right?
Well, and the other thing, you just said something, and you took it back. I was thinking a little bit further ahead, but what I should have said was exactly what you said. People have to get comfortable on the phone, because guess what? Most people don't use their phone as a phone. Most people don't even make phone calls anymore. So can you imagine, if you're not used to being on the phone, which most people are not, what kind of hard time you're having? And here's the example I'd like to give you. Think about it like this. And this is honest to God why I believe people struggle talking to, like, doing cold calling. And look, I'm going to tell you, I hate cold calling. I always have, and I always will. Anybody tells you they love it, either they haven't done enough of it or something's wrong with them. But the point is, if you remember, as a kid, every one of us had a parent that said, don't talk to strangers. Every single one of us. But not once did they ever say, now you have permission to talk to strangers. I'm going somewhere with this, the mind. So you probably know this, between ages of 0 and 7 is when you develop your habits, and we're probably still carrying out things to this day that we were doing when we were age 6. Well, my guess is it was before age 7 when I was told to not talk to strangers. We never got permission, right? And so I believe that we never got permission, and we're stuck in that fear of talking to strangers because our parents put the fear of God in us to not talk to strangers. That's my theory.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot to that, honestly. I mean, you're right. You're right. I think it's worse with technology, though. Obviously, I mean, to your point, like I don't talk on the phone,
Right.
almost ever. I don't answer my phone ever unless it's a scheduled call, and I text everybody. And so I'm 42 years old, so I'm fortunate to have grown up in the period where, like, pre-computers and enough computers to be dangerous with them. So I have the best of both worlds. It's going to be interesting to see what comes up with the generations behind us with regards to social skills and their ability to articulate themselves well in person, on stage, on video, all these different ways, right? It takes a lot of practice. And if you don't get that practice on a daily basis, like they're not getting now, like it's a problem.
It is a massive problem. So the other thing to that too, Jeff, is, it's interesting when I talk to people and I ask them about video, a lot of people hate it. And so I asked them why, and they're like, I just can't sell on video, But it's not really that you can't sell video. It's that you don't really like the way you look. And that's the fact. And that's the only difference I've come up with. That's the only difference in you and I sitting here on a computer opposed to us sitting face to face, is the fact that I can see myself when I'm talking to you now. Otherwise, if we were in person, I would not be able to see myself. And so I think there's it's almost like we potentially criticize ourselves as we're on. I don't know. That's my thought, and that's my experience, and that's my conclusion of why people don't want to get on video.
Interesting. Because as I sit here and stare at myself while we talk, it's an opportunity to really analyze your personal body language and your listening skills and things like that I don't think people probably take into account enough. I mean, that's a huge part of sales, your body language, your empathetic mirroring that you're doing. All of it is super important with regards to closing the sale and creating connection with the prospect, as far as building trust, tearing down the walls that you need for them to get out their credit card and trust you to be the person to change their life for the better, right?
Right. That's right. And the only way you're going to get those answers is by asking the right questions and active listening, which, look, I mean, I'm ADD, so I struggle with active listening. There's no way I could be texting and having this conversation with you. It just would go sideways. Every single time, no matter what, I can't do two things at once. And ultimately, nobody can put 100% in two places because the math doesn't add up. So, but active listing's a big deal. You know, I was on Bradley's show a couple of times. And the first time he asked me about, he said, Bob's mom has two sons. One's name's John. What's the other one's name? Complete deer in headlights. He said, let me ask you again, just live on his show. And it was sheer panic, right? And so he asked me again, and I'm just drawing a total blank. Why? Because I'm thinking about what I'm going to answer. I'm not listening to what he's saying because he gave me the answer in the comment. Bob's mom. Right. Yeah. And so, but it was a great lesson, and I'm glad that I got taught that lesson live on his podcast because I'll never forget it. Right? Yeah. And so it's really important. Really important.
Why do you think business owners have such a hard time training their staff on sales?
Because they don't fucking train their staff on sales. That's why. I think that, you know, there's a couple of different types of business owners. And this is one of the areas that I have really focused on, to be honest with you, is working with the business owner to uncover the reasons why either one, his day's eaten up by putting out fires, his or her, or the fact that he doesn't have a business to sell at the end of his career because he is the business and he's going to retire and have nothing to show for it because he ran everything, right? It's just like me right now. It's exactly like I did in my clinic. And I just didn't have enough sense to hire somebody to come in. I just didn't know at the time. I just didn't know. And so I think that people don't consistently, I know people don't consistently train their teams. This needs to be an every week situation. You can't just have somebody come in like, yes, can somebody pay to bring me in for a day? Absolutely. And do they? Yes. But I will tell them absolutely, unequivocally, without a doubt, is it going to be as effective as if you have me train the team consistently? No, it's not going to have the same effect. Nowhere near it.
I think that probably a lot of that is like their level of confidence in their skill and aptitude when it comes to sales, though. Because, I mean, you hear all the time that like the greatest level of understanding is to be able to teach, right? So most people start a business not because they're a fucking salesman, just because they've got a product or a service that they're passionate about, right? I saw this in the fitness industry a million times. I mean, I've mentored thousands of gym owners, and like they start gyms because they're passionate about helping people solve the problem of health and fitness and live longer, right? Like they have no interest in fucking sitting down, doing a sales consultation and telling someone that it costs a bunch of money. And that industry is rife with like pain and suffering and martyrdom because of that too. Because you bring little Johnny in here and Johnny's way overweight and I need to train him, and like, and because my heart is so big, Johnny's monthly fee is only $19. And yes, I'll starve and eat ramen noodles for the rest of my life and have my power cut off for my kids because Johnny needs my help and he's only got 3 nickels to rub together. And that industry is a mess with that type of behavior. And that's why burnout's so high. There's a lot of great people with great big hearts that are super smart, that should be training people and helping the situation that we've got with obesity and everything else, but they don't do it because they've starved for years. So, I mean, bringing in a business like you've got to be able to provide solutions for that, I think it's just important to tell the story more than anything of like, truly their obligation is to stay in business. Like I tell people that all the time, like, because if you're out of business, you can't help, you can help. How many people can you help? Zero people. And so like, if your family suffers, if you suffer, if you can't pay your bills, now I'm not talking like Lambos and private jets and shit like that. I'm talking about if you can't pay your bills and sleep at night, like you're not doing anybody a service. You're doing everyone in the circle a disservice, because little Johnny in that situation is going to get hung out to dry at some point when you go out of business and you have to take your shingle down. Right.
Yeah. You're right. Why is that, you think? Why is it that it's so, you're right. It does happen in the fitness industry all the time.
Yeah. I personally tell people that I think it's because we don't perceive, and this is not me speaking, I don't think that they value themselves. And I've seen it with my staff more than anything in the gym industry. And it's because everybody I hire, for the most part, has a high aptitude of exercise science. They've all been athletes. They've been ex-military, special operations, whatever. They've been surrounded by people. And I'm the same way, but I also have a different money mindset than they do. But and I value my hours at a high level and always have. So it wasn't a big deal for me, but for them, they think everybody knows how to work out. They think everybody can stay fit like they can stay fit. They think everybody knows what to eat. And so to them, it's so foreign to think that you don't know that you should get up and go walk 10,000 steps a day and maybe eat chicken and rice instead of fucking Burger King every day. So for them to share that knowledge with somebody, it's worth almost nothing in their mind because their perceived value is that everyone knows this.
To your exact point, the phone that you said a minute ago, right? I assume everybody knows they can pick up the phone. I didn't even think about it, right? Mm-hmm. But that's where I went wrong early when I started working with companies, is I would talk about body language and mirroring and matching, and they're like, I don't even know how to pick up a phone. I'm like, oh, we're way off. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No. So to my point, we sell $2,500 a month packages at our gym, and in their mind, when they walk in the door and start working for us, they cannot conceptualize why someone would ever spend $2,500 a month on their fitness, nutrition, and accountability ever. Because it doesn't make sense to them, because their mind is programmed, either I've got weights in my garage and I'll go bang those out because I know what to do, or I'm going to join the cheapest gym that I possibly can because I know what the fuck to do when I get in the gym. So $19.99 a month looks great at the local Globo because I'm going to go in there. I'm going to write my own program. I'm going to eat my macros dialed in. And so having these conversations with these guys is so eye-opening because they're so delusional on how far they are ahead of the normal person. And I mean, it's the same as consulting or coaching. You take for granted the amount of knowledge that you have consumed and absorbed, the roles and tasks or simple fundamentals of business. I blow right past those most of the time because I'm I didn't even know why we would talk about that. Of course you've done those, right? You're open, and that's not the case. That's not the case in 99% of the situations. That's why I think core values are so important, because you that's a simple starting question. Do you have core values for yourself and your business? And the answer is often no, but that particular stake in the ground takes us all the way back to day one. Then we can work from there. Have you established those? And then, okay, what other fundamentals have you skipped along the way?
Well, so the other thing, and so let's go right back to them not conceptualizing the $2,500. And my thought on that, and I believe that I 100% believe I'm correct, is they can't envision spending $2,500 on anything a month because they're probably only making $5,000 a month. So how could I conceptualize spending half of my monthly paycheck on a training in a gym? That concept, they can't wrap their head around it.
It's budget projection, right?
Yeah. But I'm projecting your budget, I'm projecting what your budget is based on my budget.
Correct. Yes, exactly. Yes. That's what I'm telling you. If those guys are making $4,000 a month, Like, of course, they're not going to spend 75% of it on getting healthier. Like, they'll be living on the streets, and that doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
So,
but this happens a lot in the trades as well. I see this, and if you think, if you make, just like you said, if you make it $4,000 a month, you're not going to spend $2,500 on probably anything. Not any one thing.
No.
I mean, let's just be honest. So it sure as hell is not going to be in the gym, but this is pretty rampant across a lot of industries. And I don't know if people really recognize the power of how you perceive yourself walking up to a house, walking into a gym, or somebody coming into you. You really got to think about that. And you really got to stop. We got to stop projecting out how much you can spend based on my bank account. You just got to stop doing that, because there's no way for you to know that.
Well, yeah. And also you're proven ignorant in many situations. I mean, some of the wealthiest guys I know, like, you got to be careful judging a book by its cover, like, because you'll put your foot in your mouth pretty quickly. And one of the things I was going to say is, I think you commented, I made a post the other day about, I had an interview with Todd Herman recently, and he wrote the alter ego effect.
Yes.
And that is entirely what we're talking about here. And that would be a great way to train your staff, is that they need to come up with their alter ego, a sales ego that they can step outside of. Because, like, this is not the guy with the $40,000 budget. This is their alter ego, whoever that may be. And, like, if you don't know about Todd Herman, he's a performance coach. He's been in the game for 20, 30 years, trains Olympians and Tiger Woods and Kobe Bryant. Like, that alter ego effect, he came up with, he and Kobe working together came up with Kobe's Black Mamba persona. And his alter ego was the Black Mamba. And the reason that all came about was because of all the shit he was going through in Colorado with that sexual assault case and everything else. Like, it completely, like, derailed his game and everything, because he couldn't focus on what he was supposed to be doing. And he and Todd worked together on getting him back on track, and he ended up winning the MVP and all kinds of shit that year and being able to focus. And it was because of him coming up with that alter ego. So that was part of it. Obviously he had to play some basketball, but
yeah, but if you think of, but to your point, your mind, and I know mindset gets thrown around a lot, but really how you see yourself performing in a situation, how you see the outcome of the situation, because lots of times we base the outcome or our perception of what the outcome is going to be on a shitty experience that we had 5 years ago that we've only had once out of 100 times, but we always go back to that time that guy slammed the phone down in my ear, and God, I don't want that to happen again. And it makes no sense.
Yep.
Makes no sense.
Yep.
So,
I like, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say the other thing I wanted to point out, because you mentioned Kobe, and I know how rigorously he and Jordan practiced, and to the point about sales teams and about sales business owners and sales people, you got to practice, dude. Like, you can't practice on your customers because you lose customers. You have to practice with people that can hold a conversation with you, but just so you can keep repeating these things. And I'll tell you, and this is probably the biggest tip I could give anybody. If you don't have anybody to practice with, pull your fucking phone out and take a video of yourself. You don't have to do anything with it, and just do take after take after take. And I promise you're going to get better.
Yep.
Guaranteed.
I agree with that 100%. And one of the reasons I'm a big proponent of practicing like that is because for objection handling specifically, because a lot of people freeze with deer in the headlights once you give an objection of any kind. And I think it's so important to develop your particular flow. So, like, if I hit one of my staff members with an objection, like, they'll stutter and stammer and but. I do the exact same thing the first 5 times that I get that, until I get my response. And then it becomes, that's my response. And And then there is zero hesitation. Your follow-up is so strong. And then you can start making 1 degree, 2 degree tweaks to it and make it actually even better than, like, the first thing is eliminating that surprise. And then, like, you're stuttering and you're stammering and your dead air fucking pregnant pause situation. Sometimes a pregnant pause is great in the sales world, but sometimes it's not. And objection handling would be one of those times when having a response prepared is dynamite. And I think those situations practicing just make you so much more comfortable too. And it opens up an opportunity for teaching moments with your staff too, like to talk about projection and budget projection, shit like that. That stuff all comes out during those practice sessions. So it is super important.
So just curious, you know, whenever you're, well, I have two questions. The first question is, how often do you role play with your teams? And maybe it's not you, but how often do you have somebody on your staff that effectively role plays on a consistent basis with all your trainers? Don't feel bad.
Never on a schedule. It's a reactive drill every time. Never a proactive drill. So there you go.
Reacting to a disaster, right?
Or a shitty month of lost leads. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing. The other thing is mirroring, right? Anytime you get an objection, if you just listen to the last 3 to 5 words of whatever they said, doesn't even matter what it is, and you can mirror that back to them. And I haven't done it to you, but I did it. I did a whole talk on this at PodFest this year, and it was hilarious because after I talked about mirroring and I took questions at the end, one of the questions, the lady said, "I just don't know if I would be able to pull that off," or something along those lines. And so I mirrored her. I said, "You're not sure you can pull it off?" She was like, "Yeah, like I think that I think I would get caught." And I said, "You would get caught?" And she was like, and so the MC actually turned to me to explain the question. And I said, "All right, so I just mirrored you twice in front of everybody, and you had absolutely no idea." And it was hilarious because their minds were blown. But really, it gives you and if you're actively listening, it gives you the ability, if you whatever those 3 to 5 words, if I repeat that back to you, Jeff, you're going to feel like I'm listening to you. And you're going to tell me even more about what I didn't hear, right? If you catch me off guard.
Yep. No, I get it. I understand what you're doing there tactically 100% because you're giving yourself time too. It buys you time at every situation.
And it builds rapport.
Right. Yeah.
It's massive.
That's brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. I love it, man. Well, this has been fantastic. How can people get a hold of you, Corey?
Yeah, so you could go to my website, CoreyBerrier.com, and Berrier spelled with the E, which I'm sure you'll put in the show notes. And then at Corey Berrier on all my social channels. Yeah.
It's Berrier for those of you that are wondering. And it's Corey with an E, Corey.
Yes, sir.
CoreyBerrier.com if you want to know more about the Sales CEO Syndicate. If your team needs some training or some assistance, look this man up. You have any parting shots for us, man? I love how cool, calm, and collected you are over there smoking your stogie.
Well, you know, I do love my cigars. I'm not gonna lie to you.
He's got some great video content out there too, guys. So if you want to follow some sales tips and things like that, hop on Instagram, follow him there. He puts out regular content on sales tips and tricks.
Yeah, in fact, that'd be the last thing is as people check out my YouTube, right? Definitely check out that. It's something I've just now been kind of putting a little bit more effort into, and I am trying to grow that. So that would be great.
Awesome.
And look, if I can help anybody in your audience, by all means, let me know. And I have an objection crusher cheat sheet that I'm happy to give out to anybody that would like, or I can send it to you, put it in the show notes, and they can download it, do whatever they want to with it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Send it to me. We'll throw it in the show notes. That's awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, Corey. I appreciate your time today. Tactical Empire community, get a hold of me if you need anything. I will hook you up with Corey. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Tactical Empire.